Hi, I'm Chuck.
And Deb.
And welcome to Biker Life Radio. We're so truly grateful and thankful that you've joined us today. We've got a very unique show that could be quite controversial lined up just for you.
Biker Life Radio is for those who ride and those who inspire to ride. We are here to reveal the truth behind the motorcycle mystique and bring real-life stories of the biker lifestyle.
Okay, let's acknowledge the sponsor today, Deb.
Today's show sponsor is Tony and Guy Hairdressing Academy out of Colorado Springs. So if you are ready to put your knees to the wind, seats in the saddle, chins in the wind, then hang on and let's get
All right,
rolling.
well, let's just get rolling. So we've got a great show lined up. We got a couple great individuals. We actually had a gentleman by the name of Mr. Boothman. He actually contacted us based on the last couple of shows that we've been doing on group riding.
Yes.
And he brought up what, Deb?
He brought up the 2-second and 1-second rule and how we just briefly touched on that in one of our segments, but we didn't necessarily really discuss it in detail.
Yeah.
So he thought that it was an important topic, which we would agree. And so he joined us. Now, a little bit about Mr. Boothman is he is a retired Army for 24 years and has come from law enforcement, but he's ridden everything from Harley Davidsons to Honda, and now.
Yeah, I'm just wanted to say, I'm looking at his bio or resume or whatever it is that he sent over. He says that he was a retired civil service for police officer and formerly a certified traffic accident and investigator.
Right.
I'm sorry.
And in addition to that, he actually taught the defensive driving course to approximately 700 military personnel. So if he is not safety driven, I don't know.
And he's been riding motorcycles for 45 years. So
that's right. And so
he's got a little bit of experience.
And right now he's actually transitioned from the 2 wheels to 3 wheels with the Polaris slingshot. So he brings a lot of great information to the table regarding not only 2 wheels, but 3 wheels as well. So that's one guest. And then we also have Jim Wilder joining us. And Jim's background, again, 34 years retired Army, a great servant's heart, and 29 years with our local hog chapter. So again, he's been the director, he leads rides and is a ride leader, has done all sorts of things, and is just, again, a phenomenal wealth of information and experience to share with everyone regarding this topic.
He's been riding since he was 10, and he's gone all over the country, and he spent most of the time while he was in the hog chapter probably as the director. As long as we've known him, he had been the director for a number of years. So we're going to have him on, and we're going to go right there. We're going to get them on here in just a second, Deb.
That's right.
All right, so here we go. Let's go ahead and see if we can get everybody switched over and bring everybody on board. Hold on just a second.
All right, we are kicking it into high gear today because we thought we were done with group riding, but it's not over yet. We actually had one of our listeners from another part of the U.S., which we'll talk about in a moment, ask some questions and make some great recommendations about talking about this 1-second, 2-second ride. So I figured what better way to just kind of put it out there and get it clear for everyone is just have a conversation. So I've invited Jim Boothman, which is our listener that gave that great suggestion and recommendation.
So Jim should wave, even though it does have his name on there. There you go, Jim.
So
Mr.
there's
Boothman.
Mr. Boothman joining us. And then our mentor and leader of many rides and group rides is a great friend of ours, Jim Wilder. So who better to have the other side in our local area is Jim Wilder. So we just wanted to kind of get together and all of us have a conversation. So Mr. Boothman, why don't you start off?
And it was Mr. Boothman that contacted you, right?
Correct. Yep. So that's where I wanted to start is really, what prompted you to really talk and want to talk more about the 2-second, 1-second, following distance and things like that with group riding?
Well, the experience I've had riding is a lot of people really don't know how to use the 2-second or 1-second rule. In my previous history of safety, not only in the military, but in civilian life, the 2-second rule applies to any motion or any vehicle that you're driving. You can follow somebody, you don't know what the speed is, or you don't know what the distance is I got to have. Just use the 2-second rule. We can use a road sign or a paint mark in the roadway or a bridge abutment or whatever, some fixed object. And obviously you can't use a shadow, but you use that 2-second rule and it gives you a good, safe following distance. Is in group riding, what we don't know is a motorcycle that may be to your right all of a sudden wants to move to the left, and you don't know that. You can't read their mind. So the 2-second rule of the vehicle or the motorcycle that's directly in front of you, with a 1 second distance between the vehicle or the motorcycle that's offset to your right, it gives you a way out. I always try to drive defensively, both in my car and in my motorcycle. Of course, now I'm driving a what I call a Batmobile, a Polaris slingshot, and there's a big difference even in the slingshot. I did have a Tri-Glide Harley 14 model, and when I got that Tri-Glide, I was also given a booklet from the Motorcycle Safety Foundation that discusses the 1 second, 2 second rule, as well as gives them some illustrations. So, but I see that if everybody would talk about that 2 second rule, 1 second rule before group rides during safety lectures by the hog chapter directors or their road captains or whatever, it has to stay on your mind all the time. You have to be aware of what's 360, what's around you, not just in front of you or to your left or your right. So that's kind of how I got into saying, Deb, I love watching y'all's podcast, but then the group ride, as you train the new riders, the 1 second, 2 second rule is a foundation of safety for riding in a group.
Absolutely. Great point.
And that's why we thought it was a good idea to just go ahead and get you right on here. And we appreciate you bringing that to our attention. And before I forget, before we move too much forward, we wanted to thank you for the little gift that you sent to us in the mail. We've actually got those flags displayed behind us here. Yeah. So thank you for taking the time to send that to us. It was very kind of you and thoughtful as well. So we really appreciate that, Mr. Boothman. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sounds so common sense.
Yeah.
From a vehicle and motorcycling, but I know in our experiences with Jim Wilder, it's always been a conversation, and not necessarily with us, but I know among the group, there's always that discussion about, is that really safe and is it viable? And so Jim, share with you some of that experience, because I know as the leader of the local hog chapter for as long as you were, you are very familiar with kind of some of those conversations.
Well, I also think it was sort of funny, and Jim, when you do it, if you could remind me, because it seemed like you used to always get into it with somebody. Someone always seemed to dispute you on the 1 and 2 second rule, and I couldn't remember who it was, because we tried to get them on too, because that would be for make some good.
You bring up the 2 second rule, and you brought up a whole world of issues. Anybody in this group know where the 2 second rule came from?
Oh, good question.
Yeah, that's a great point. No, I don't know that I do. Although I do know
maybe the Army.
Yeah.
I tried to find out.
I don't remember.
The best I can come up with is Wikipedia. And it says the 2 second rule is a rule of thumb, remember that, by which a driver may maintain a safe traveling distance at any speed. This is that a driver should ideally stay at least 2 seconds behind any vehicle that is directly in front of his or her vehicle. This is intended for automobiles, although it in general principle applies to other types of vehicles. Some areas recommend a 3 second rule instead of a 2 second rule to give additional buffer. The 2 seconds is not a guide to safe stopping distance, it's more a guide to reaction times. So if you start, and I'm sure that when you're instructing your new riders, the reaction time is to get your hand onto the brake.
Right.
How long does that take? That's the first part of the reaction time in the 2 seconds.
Right.
So again, everybody's reaction time is different. Mm-hmm. Some people actually ride with their hand on the front brake along with the throttle, which reduces the reaction time. So keeping that in mind, at 40 miles an hour, your stopping distance is 65 feet.
Wow.
65 feet.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And that's So the bike in front of you locks up his brakes. How long does it take you to lock up your brakes? 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds?
Right?
That
Just
reaction.
depends.
So it's an individual issue of reaction time.
Hmm.
My reaction time, once again, at 69, is not as good as it was when I was 50.
Right.
So the other thing is 2 seconds, and this is where the issue has always come in. It's 70 miles an hour because you're on an interstate. You're going to travel 103 feet per second.
Hmm.
So 2 seconds, that's going to be approximately 205 feet between you and the bike in front of you.
Okay.
Okay, 205 feet. So think about this. You got a tractor trailer that's next to you. You're going to be leaving enough room for 3 tractor trailers to pull in between you and the bike in front of you. Is that a good thing?
Mm.
Yeah, not in group riding, as you know.
Well,
You know that just a few bikes could extend,
So
miles
this-
long. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Exactly. So, I mean, and it goes, the lower speeds, I think it's more appropriate. 25 miles an hour, you're 37 feet per second. So 2 seconds, you're traveling 73 feet. And at 25 miles an hour, it takes you approximately 30 feet to stop.
That's something.
Yeah. The other thing that we have to take into consideration is the type of bike that you're riding. I ride a newer 2019 Street Glide Special. It has new safety features that Harley's coming out with, anti-lock brakes. There's all sorts of the electronic sensors where both the wheels spinning are tied together. That's going to improve your stopping distance. Do you need to have 6, or 4 semis between you and the bike in front of you if you're on the interstate?
Can't imagine. Seen it happen.
Well, yeah, because once
Not
again, we
willingly.
get into this argument and I go, okay,
That's where the argument comes in, right?
and
Right.
I start doing the 2 second rule.
Right.
Right.
Lower speeds, it works better. But today I led a ride to breakfast. Speed limits ranged from 25 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour.
Okay.
So it's very easy to do a 2 second rule. 1001, 1002, and that's how far apart I need to be.
Right.
But now, as the ride leader, I'm trying to find the bikes behind me because we're getting ready to go through a traffic light. There's 4 cars in between us or more with 8 bikes. If we close up that gap, I don't lose track of the bikes.
Correct.
Controversy.
Yeah.
What is the right distance?
Let's ask Mr. Boothman if he has any feedback on that, because that's a good place.
Right.
Well, I think the 2 second rule, and Jim, well, I agree with what you're saying in regards to speed. However, the following distance is relative. The vehicle or the bike in front of you has got to stop too. But your reaction time, just to digress a minute, the defensive driving, National Safety Council defensive driving course determines the average reaction time in an automobile is 3/4 of a second.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was so many years ago when I was younger. Like you say, I'll be 72 next week, so I'm getting up there myself.
Not that far ahead of me, 3 years.
Yeah, but the speed of a vehicle that's in front of you, his reaction time may be slower than yours, maybe faster. But the braking on a motorcycle, I've always used both brakes when I stop, whether I'm doing 20 miles an hour or 75 miles an hour. My last 2-wheel was the Ultra Classic that did have anti-lock brakes on it. And I thank goodness I have them on there, or I had it on there, because if I didn't have anti-lock brakes, I wouldn't be sitting here with y'all today. A short story, if I can interject here, Chuck and Deb, is my wife and I were en route to Northwest Arkansas. We went through a town called Mena, Arkansas, which is part of the Wilhelmina trail ride up to there, and that's part of the Talamina Rally Cruise for St. Jude's run. But a speed limit was 35, 4-lane road. I was in the outside lane, and a little old lady and her friend in a full-size Lincoln Town Car pulls out of the Sonic drive-in, and I'm about maybe 1.5 car lengths away from her pulling out. I hit both brakes, wheels didn't lock up, but my wife went forward. I was pressed against the windshield. My left face was against the windshield, but we didn't have a collision. And I have to admit that I was not real happy camper. A red traffic light turned red, and I pulled up next to them, and the lady in the passenger seat did not move her head left or right. She maintained a forward position. She knew what was happening, what could have happened. So, but the following distance in a group ride, we recently had a funeral service for a Marine Corps veteran who was also a road captain for a rally. Well, not my rally, but that was participant. And we had probably 160 bikes, 2-lane roads, interstate highways, and we kind of got split up a little bit. But we were to see all these vehicles, all the motorcycles that were in a staggered formation, going down the highway, keeping a proper distance was just like beautiful sunset in the afternoon. But the following distance, again, cars come in, the staggering positions enables you to be safe when that vehicle may try to come into your formation. And I'm sure the other Jim has had that experience too, where people, what you mentioned earlier, that people will tend to jump into your formation because they're in a big hurry. And unfortunately, the attitude of a lot of people toward a group of bikers is somewhat less than desirable. But as Neil Jones, our director of the rally, says, that group of people are riders on bikes. Those are ones maybe in a benefit ride that are collecting money to donate to an appropriate cause, whether it be the St. Jude's or the Shriners or cancer or whatever, autistic children. But the distance thing is something that sometimes is not really covered properly by a lot of safety or road captains, and go from there. So throw my 2 cents in there. Jim, I'm sorry to take any steam away from your comments there.
No. And once again, it's a continuing argument because once again, is it safe as you're traveling to have all the cars mixed in and it's going to happen. Right. And now you've got a car that's no longer keeping a 2-second distance on the bike, and everything gets all jammed up. So is it safer to have the bikes closer together and not have the cars in there? Or is it safer to have the separation for the bikes and put 2 cars in there?
Right.
So if I can answer that question, Chuck, is there is a recommendation that you have a lot of bikes. And I've been in bike rides where we've had upwards of 600 bikes. And they had local police department, motorcycle squadrons, blocking intersections for the entire ride. It was a best for vets ride in Shreveport, Louisiana. Unfortunately, it's dwindled down. There are not that many bikes participating in it. But the need to keep that distance, even in that amount of people, the 2-second rule would still apply. But if you figure the distance should be including the stopping distance, then yeah, it's not realistic. But the Motorcycle Safety Foundation does recommend, as I can't tell you what page it is here, that if you've got a large number of bikes, you divide up into subgroups or different groups, so you don't just all ride together. Absolutely. And go from there. So now I referenced the Talamina rally. We had because of the COVID-19, the attendance was down. but we still had approximately 140 bikes participate. And we rode as a group. Again, each city we went through, local law enforcement had traffic stopped. They knew what we were doing and what the purpose of the ride was for. And most people in that area knew what we were doing too. So, but because it rained on the Saturday, we had to cancel everything, or the director did, not me as such. But because I'm just a participant, is all that, just like Chuck and Deb is. So, but it's but we were looking forward to having Chuck and Deb come up to visit and go from there.
Yeah, we'll make it next year. That's the plan for sure.
We'll put that plan in motion already, so that's a good thing. And I can only imagine the beauty up there. So, but you guys, not only was the ride great, but you guys raised like $68,000. That was incredible.
That's amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. It really was.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, Jim, back to you, I guess.
Well, and we could go back and forth forever. I mean, I've been in rides. Toys for Tots, when we did that, the teddy bear run where we did that, where there was, we had 1,000 bikes, and they wouldn't let us maintain the 2-second rule because instead of being a mile-long ride, it was a 3-mile-long group of motorcycles. I've ridden in DC for the Memorial Run there, where there's, I don't know how many thousands of bikes, and 2-second rule is not maintained there.
Right.
And once, to me, in what I iterate repeatedly as a ride leader when we get ready to go out and ride to your ability. I mean, how many times have you heard me say that?
Right.
Right.
Because if I know my reaction time is 3 seconds instead of a second, I'm going to allow more space between me and the bike in front of me, because that 3 seconds potentially at 25 miles an hour is 90 feet.
That's incredible.
Before I actually apply the brakes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So yeah, that's your reaction time from the time you, oh wow, something just happened in front of me and I need to stop.
Right.
Once again, my bike is a newer bike, newer technology. I grab the front brake and front brake only. I apply brakes to both front and rear.
Okay.
Great.
Which stops me with anti-lock brake systems. I don't start to slide. I have a earth-shattering slowdown where I'm screaming at myself for being so stupid that I had to do that. So forever we can go back and forth on 2-second rule.
And
if that's what you're comfortable riding, then I support you 100%.
Right.
Because that's your level of comfort.
Right.
And I think, like I said, Deb, I've watched you with your students and how you teach them, which is the most important thing, is training those people that have never ridden before or didn't have their endorsement, the proper way of riding and dealing with it. I've been riding since I was 10 on some sort of two-wheel motorized vehicle. I never had an endorsement, so I had to go get it at 50.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my instructor, thank goodness it was, you kept beating me because, I'd do one of his fancy turns and I'm laying my knee along the, like I used to when I was racing. You can't do that. But then I've looked behind me and seen somebody with 8 hangers in the air with a grin on their face that definitely wasn't 2 seconds behind me.
Don't know who that could have been.
I'm not sure.
That sort of
I didn't recognize him. The smile was too big.
Yeah, you can't recognize him now with all that facial hair, that's for sure.
So you both have brought up braking, and so what I'd like to do is, Rider Coach Deb, what are you teaching in the class?
Before we go to braking, I'd really like to talk about that 2-second rule, because the Motorcycle Safety Foundation's stance on group riding is that it's really something for a more experienced rider. They don't recommend a brand new rider go out and group ride. And for the longest time as a coach, I was conflicted with that because I believe I learned so much from group riding,
really did.
but
The whole
I
hog
also
chapter
have to
experience.
remember that I had a great group, and Jim Wilder, you're part of that great group, because just what started this whole conversation off a couple of weeks ago is I had a student in class that had a less than desirable experience with a very large group, and they brought that to my attention in class, and we had really good conversations about it. And so that was, to me, what really kicked it off. But I think the key is one, it's the leadership's role, and this is just my belief, it's not how everyone does it, but to educate and guide the group on how they can expect the ride to go. And part of that is that safety briefing, which talks about the 2-second rule. Also, I think that every rider has a responsibility, and if they're not comfortable, if it is their first group ride or they're not sure about group riding quite yet, is one, either attend a course to learn about it, and I know that our local hog chapter provides that, or two, have that communication with the ride leader at that time so that they can put you in the right position, knowing the majority of the group. Now, I know we've led rides before, and I would probably say I know the majority of the people in the ride and how they ride. So if I had a new rider, I may position them toward the back where the sweep could really watch them more closely, where they could take more distance and space and not impact the group in such a large way. So, there are dynamics, I think, to group riding that experienced riders need to kind of take that responsibility too. So that's my 2 cents.
I agree.
So, but also,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mr. Boothman.
Well, I'm sorry, Dave. In the group rides, and I'm sure y'all have found this out too. The experienced riders have either one or the other position to take in the ride, either up the front, behind the leader, or be the leader, or they want to be in the back.
Yes.
Since I ride a wide-bodied beach motorcycle now, in Texas it's called an auto cycle, I've kind of been relegated to the back of the group ride, and I'm really kind of enjoying it. But the only drawback, and I'm sure that Jim's seen this and you've seen it too, David, is I've been in rides where the speed limit is 55 on the highway, and I'm doing 75 to 80 to keep up or to catch up, and all of a sudden it's the accordion effect comes into play.
Right.
So, and that's some guys are, and with all respect to Deb, I'll say some riders want to get on their bikes and just open the throttle and go. If they're in the front, they can't do it. In the back, they have a chance to do it, which is unsafe to me, but whatever. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
I like that you brought up, and you called it the accordion effect, and I've also called it, heard it called the rubber band effect.
Yes.
That'll work.
Back, it's back and forth, it's like off and on, and people are not keeping the pace as is. So.
Well, part of that is in training your ride leaders. As a ride leader, I come up to a stop sign and make a turn, left or right. When I make that turn, if I roll the throttle up to the speed limit, I've got bikes that haven't even made it to the stop sign yet.
Right.
So when I go around that corner, you've ridden with me, I do 25 miles an hour and keep a look behind me till I see the last bike come around the corner, then slowly go up to the speed limit.
There you go.
Right.
That stops that part of it, because once again, I've been on rides where I'm next to the last bike and have to do 85 miles an hour to catch up.
Right.
Right.
So as a ride leader, there's a couple of things that they need to be taught. Go around the corner, don't immediately go up to the speed limit.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of responsibility, I think, as being a road captain or the ride leader.
For sure. One other thing I know that I talk about in my class, because I have personally experienced that, is passing as a group. And we haven't really talked about that either.
That's a whole different topic,
Passing,
probably.
an 18-wheeler as a group, because in some of the group rides we've been on, the lead bike or two will pass and then quickly get in front of the truck and slow up, not realizing that the rest of the 5, 10, 12 bikes need to still have to continue to pass that. So that throttle, again, and I talk about the no zones and all that sort of stuff in class to help educate people. But that's one thing I know from a personal experience that I have personally experienced. I will certainly take ownership of that. And it's a frustration because you don't realize the gap in front of that 18-wheeler they don't have any visibility for a good long distance out in front of that nose of the truck. And so we've got to keep that momentum moving. And I know my arms are all moving. I'm talking with my hands. But, you know, the group's got to be safe before it gets over. And it's not about just getting over in front of the truck real quick.
And so can we go back to the question about the brakes real quick, because we are getting a little bit low on time.
Yeah, brakes. Anti-lock brakes. I know, Jim, you are riding with them, and I'm sure that Mr. Boothman's riding with them as well. Definitely, you know, and again, from class, I have people come say, you know, I've always been taught to not use this front or the rear brake, and they're taught one or the other. And so
let's go to that real quick, because you had somebody in the class. This was like a little controversy for you in class. Somebody was told they should never use their front brake. Was that right? Do I have that right?
I've had actually the last 2 classes, there's been one person in each of the classes, and I went, you know, what are you talking about? Not use your
front dirt bike, you disconnect the front brake.
There you go.
Because you hit that front brake and it stops and it digs in, and you and the bike go tumbling down the trail.
Right.
You only use the back. So that's where that comes from, is from dirt bike riding.
Okay. Now, there's also something I have found to be pretty common for dirt bike riders. If you do use your front brake, do you have any idea, if you have your hand around there, how you reach for that front brake as a dirt bike rider?
I'm not sure I'm
I
following.
don't remember, because I didn't use the front.
You didn't use it at all. I know from teaching, what I find as a very consistent pattern is the 2-finger braking rather than the entire hand braking. And so again, that's safety conscious. I have to constantly course correct people and retrain that thinking. You actually have less control with those 2 fingers than you do the entire hand in the braking process. And if you go down, guess what's going to happen to these bad boys? Whoops. So again, it's just a safety thing.
You put the 2 fingers over the front brake, so if you hit a bush or something, you still got the others to use on the brake.
All right, I'll remember that technique.
Well, it's a safety thing.
Yeah. So, and that's important because, you know, from a braking perspective, 70% of your braking power on the street motorcycles comes from your front brake. Okay. And if you're not using that in conjunction with the rear, you're totally missing the mark. And one of the examples in the class is an actual braking exercise in relationship to an intersection. And so I love that part of the exercise because it shows them with a 1 second delay at just 15 and 25 miles an hour, how much that 1 second increases, and you could be all the way through the intersection.
What Jim was talking about Sharon earlier about how long it takes to stop, you know?
That's right. Absolutely right.
So Deb, this is another one. So what about braking and I don't know, I would call it downshifting. Somebody else might call it something else.
Engine braking.
Engine braking, okay.
Favorite topic.
Yes or no?
If you ride behind me, you won't see my brake light a lot of the time. I use the transmission. Especially on
Go ahead, Jim.
Roads, you know me. We're up in the mountains riding through there. I'm using the transmission.
Yeah. Mr. Boothman?
Yes, I use, even on my slingshot, I use the 5-speed. And I call my slingshots between a go-kart and a sports car. You're sitting there, it's of course side by side, passenger and driver. In the front end, you've got a General Motors 2.4 173 horsepower motor, and it'll pick up and go. But the only drawback is the back wheel is the only traction you got. So if you lose it on the traction in the back end, you're going to spin or go off somewhere, which I did in 2016. So it was tough. Matter of fact, it was a hydroplane problem. In the area that I live in, is a lot of our roads are rutted. That is, you can see where the wheels of the four wheels of a car are. In the slingshot, the front wheels are in those ruts and the back one's on top of the high center. So you either take the shot at water or take the shot at the oil and stuff filled up. And I was doing less than 30 miles an hour, and there was just no hope. We went off to the side on an embankment. Luckily, there was no drainage or any kind of obstacles. And we slid sideways for about, I'd say, 200 feet or longer. And I finally got it back up on the road. There was no shoulder whatsoever. We were going to Memphis, matter of fact. But it was even now they remember that problem. As the other Jim knows, a monsoon rain is something that's so heavy you can't see your hand in front of your face at times, and that's what this rainstorm was, a monsoon, and brought back some bad memories. But told my wife, look out for the fog line on the side of the road. If you see it, fine. If you don't see it, I'll move to the left. Or if you see me get away from it, I'll move back to the right. And but it was that bad. So but you always have to watch out for those ruts anyway, whether you got 3 or 2 wheels.
Yep, for
absolutely.
sure. So
we call those range frog stranglers down here in the South.
what are they, Jim?
Frog stranglers.
I had
Yeah.
I thought well, we call them a squall or something like that, but a frog strangler.
Yep.
Frog strangler because they're
I
good
call 'em-
so much.
The frogs drown. They can't keep up with it.
Gotcha.
I call them frog floaters.
Yep.
Yep, and we've had those from on the way back from Atlanta for
Oh,
sure.
boy,
That
we've
they
been
were
on a few.
Oh, yes.
stalling out a few motorcycles there.
I remember Janine riding behind Chuck and
Yeah.
losing the engine because too much water got into the intake.
Yep, that's
Mhm,
how
a little
bad it was
crazy.
coming down.
Yep.
And I too am one that I use. What's it called?
Engine braking.
Engine braking. I
Mhm.
downshift. Most of the time, depending, but a lot of times I use all 3. So I use my front brake and I use my rear brake and I downshift depending on the situation. And if I'm going to stop fast, I use all 3. If I have to stop fast and I know I'm going to have to stop fast, well, I'm using everything I've got. But Deb, is that the right thing?
Well,
I think she told me, she corrected me the other day.
I believe that I engine brake from time to time too, and I understand it, and especially mountainous terrain, it makes perfect sense. For a new rider, though, I'm a little hesitant to talk too much about it because what you're not doing, and from a safety standpoint, what you're not doing is signaling to the vehicles behind you or the motorcycles behind you that you are slowing down and stopping. So again, using all those visual indicators that you can to help you stay safe. And it's creating that muscle memory. In an emergency,
You teach them hand signals?
no, we do not. Actually, Motorcycle Safety Foundation does not really go over hand signals. So that's a good thing.
But there is a product, and we interviewed the owner of that product last week that would help in that situation. And from what I understand, what he told us, Deb, correct me if I'm wrong, it'll be able to sense whether the bike is slowing down or not. So it's a brake helmet that you put on the back of your helmet, a light that you put on the back of your helmet. And so as you decelerate, the light will come on.
Correct. Yeah. So it has a sensor in there.
They actually should have them on bikes as well.
Right. Yeah. So pretty neat device. And we're getting ready to do some major testing out on that baby.
So very interesting. There's so much to discuss once you start getting into this topic, but we can go all over the place. I mean, the rubber band effect, the accordion effect, the braking, the shifting and passing. There's a lot to group riding. There really is.
Yes. The most important thing is the ride leader making sure that everybody on the ride understands the rules, hand signals, where you're going, and make sure that everybody's paying attention.
Absolutely.
And
ride to your ability.
That's right.
Exactly.
And most importantly, ride and have fun.
Yeah.
Yes. You take somebody that comes out of your rider's edge class, I know they've been qualified to ride the motorcycle, but I wouldn't take them through the dragon behind
No.
There's a slight difference.
Yes, big difference.
Chuck Deb, Jim here. I guess the one word that could sum up, in addition to what the other Jim said, is communication. You got to communicate to your other riders, and to do that, those brake lights, turn signals, but also if you look ahead in the group ride, don't look just at the vehicle or the motorcycle right in front of you. Look down the center of the formation. So you can see brake lights coming on. You knew big things might be happening ahead of you. So you have to watch out.
Good point.
Huge point. Big point. You're absolutely right. Again, this opens such a world of things that we could talk about when it comes to motorcycle riding and motorcycle safety and how to appropriately ride, because Yeah, you're right. We want to keep an eye on what's not just what's in front of us. And there is that. And I'll be the first to admit I'll get back and I'm following somebody and I'm just enjoying the ride. Right. And I'm just focusing on whatever's in my head and I'm not really paying attention. You know, I forget there's something that we call
target
it.
fixation.
And so I'm just relaxing in the ride, you know, and so I do have, and I have to bring myself back into it, you know. So,
Oh yeah, I've looked back and seen you a half mile, 3/4 of a mile back. Yeah, right there beside me, but you're way back there.
In his
We
own
just-
little world. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
You got to keep awake. You got to pay attention. You got to be looking up the road. You got to know
Right.
what's, you know, not just in front of you, but, you know, half mile down the road if you possibly can. Or
That's
whatever.
absolutely
I don't know
right.
what the rules are, but
Yeah.
so it's been a great discussion. I think a lot more can come out of this.
Yes.
And, you know, it's been like a little panel here when we got Mr. Boothman his message and he brought up this topic. And like Deb said, we happened to think of Jim Wilder because it was just so every time it came up, there was this huge discussion. It wasn't this discussion. It was almost like an argument, you know, and it was like nobody ever won.
To me, the most impressive thing is it's 70 miles an hour, which is not uncommon for us to ride at. In 2 seconds, you travel 205 feet.
That is incredible.
Phenomenal.
In 2 seconds.
To put that in
That's
perspective.
almost, it's 2/3 of a football field.
Right.
Right. Oh,
So
Yeah.
it does
that's
get,
a lot of space.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say it that way, it does something to your mind, or at least it does to my mind, because I hadn't thought of it that way before. You know,
Yeah.
I haven't really.
It's like, you know, I tried to relate it to something. So I said semis. That's 205 feet. An average semi is 48 feet. So that's the trailer.
Wow.
So you're looking at that, and you could fit 5 of those in there,
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
and you and the bike in front of you.
Think about it.
Yeah.
Nuts.
Great analogy to give a real great visual perspective on really what riders are dealing with at those speeds. For sure.
In some areas, recommend 3 seconds.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
So the person that's beside me is who I'm worried about. The person that's in front of me, I'm sure, is worried about me.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chuck, you can ride beside me anytime you want. I know that you're going to fall asleep, and I'm not going to worry about it. But it's safety is knowing the people you're riding with,
Yes.
paying attention, looking down the middle of the group to look for brake lights, looking at the side roads to see the cars coming at you. I have a rule that if I see a car coming up a side road, I want to see their eyes. If I see their eyes, I know they've at least looked in my direction.
Right.
Mhm.
But my habit is when I'm coming up to an intersection, I see a car, is I take my hand and put it on the brake. That just cut my reaction time from 2 seconds to 1 second.
Yep. A little bit of
So there's little things that we can do that
To
in
sharpen
the
the first.
argument, Jim, you and I will argue for the next 30 days. And when I've had enough, I'm going to come to Texas and strangle you.
You're welcome to come on anytime, Bubba. No, oh, by the way, Jim, I don't think Deb said, I did spend 10 years in law enforcement working for the Army. Okay.
Well, that's a personal problem. You know?
No, I get very patriotic the first of each month, if you know what I
me
mean.
too. Yes, sir. I get my check. I did 34 years in the reserve, so I wasn't active duty, but I get my check every month. And
Yeah.
I'm
Your
taking-
ID card's the same as mine.
Yes, sir.
Retired.
Exactly. They can say whatever they want.
That's it.
When I was a maintenance company commander, I would take my unit out in the bush, and we would convoy out, and my drivers would take the old grease pencil, if you remember them, Jim.
Oh yeah.
And you would get that 50 meters ahead of the vehicle in front of you. You make a little box, and you kept that vehicle inside that box. And if it got outside the box, you're too close. But if it got with too small in the box, you're too far away. So it was a good means to keep the distance. It stretched out about 2.5 miles with all the vehicles that I had. So
Oh yeah.
they didn't like me on the highways.
Remember doing the night moves when you had the 4 triangles? If
Oh,
you were
yeah.
close, you had 4, too far away, you had 1, just right, you had 2.
That's right.
I
People don't realize that night driving. I'm not sure how much time we got left, but I need to share a story with y'all that is hilarious. In my riding experience, I've ridden Hondas, of course, Harleys and Polaris slingshots. But one of the bikes I had was a Moto Guzzi.
Oh, great bike. Great bike.
Yeah, I had, you know your bikes, Jim. I had the Moto Guzzi in '71 made a 750 and an 850. My father-in-law had a love of motorcycles, and he was a traveling salesman. Small town in Arkansas, Camden, Arkansas, was a dealership for Moto Guzzis. He went by there and he saw one he liked. He talked the dealer into letting him put it on layaway. Never heard of that in all my experience of buying stuff. But he didn't tell his wife it was on layaway. Took her out one time and went by there and they saw that motorcycle. He pointed it out to her, said, "Look, I can get this for half price." She said, "Well, go ahead and get it." So he got his motorcycle. It took him a year to get it, but he got his motorcycle. And God bless his soul, he never told her and took her to his grave. So if you want a new motorcycle, Deb, you don't watch out if he puts one on layaway, okay?
All right, now I know the way it works. All right.
Yeah, but it was hilarious. And I bought that motorcycle from him several years later. And it was
the 850.
I had the 750, Ambassador 750, and it was something.
Yeah. The only other thing I like better than Moto Guzzi is the BMW with the shaft drive.
Yeah. The Moto Guzzi had a shaft drive.
Yes.
It wasn't much bigger than your pinky until he went to the quill shaft. Until he got to the end to the sprocket. Yep. Then it widened up a little bit bigger. So tuned up like a '49 Chevy.
So what's up next, Chuck and Deb?
Well, we're going to wrap it up, I guess, here because we've covered quite a bit. It's been great. We're going to have to have you. I think we'll have to have you guys back on.
I think
you guys are a good mix together.
Yeah.
Jims and Jims. J&J.
Hey, you can't go wrong with Jim, can you?
Nope.
Apparently not.
No.
Deb, you have to get rid of Chuck, though. It's just Jim, and Deb.
I always have that.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Chuck and Deb, I appreciate. Go ahead, Jim.
I just known Chuck and Deb for many years, ridden all over the United States with them.
A lot of miles.
I guess the fond memory of him riding up beside me going, "I think my back tire's got something wrong with it." It's good to me. 5 minutes later, head flat. And I was going down the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been some stories.
That's one of those ones. That's the story.
There's lots of stories.
Yeah, Chuck and Deb, I want to say I appreciate y'all inviting me to participate, and I hope I was able to contribute a little bit and get everybody to understand the advantage of using something like the 1 and 2 second rule for safety. And Jim Wilder, my pleasure to meet you, sir, and thank you for what you've done for motorcycle safety.
Yep.
I know Chuck and Deb are really ahead of us, but I appreciate y'all letting me participate.
Well, I think that
for taking the time out of your
the rule is very important. It gives everybody the basic design to separate between bikes. And it puts the emphasis on keeping a safe distance between you and the bike in front of you.
Right.
And that's the way I feel about it.
Very important.
There you go.
Absolutely got to have it. Well, Mr. Boothman, a pleasure having you on board. Good meeting you over video. We hope to see you and get to meet you
face to face next year.
At the very least next year
at
Talamina, right? And so been a real great time having you here.
Yes, totally.
And,
so
and of course my brother Jim
from the other mother.
I love you.
That's a show in itself, explaining that one.
Yeah, we'll just leave them all hanging for the next time then. So thank you both for being here. I've had a
It's
great
been a great
time.
show.
It's been
A lot of good
show.
information. We could keep going. You know
Yes.
that. Both of you know.
Yeah.
We keep going and going because there's so much to cover, and that's what we'll do. That's what I was thinking, Deb. We could try to do these every so often. Every once in a
Right.
while, maybe we get one of these. We get you guys to come back on and sort of go for it, because I think it's educational. And really, part of our show is really to reach out to those people who want to ride. Of course, the experienced riders as well, they can learn a lot, but it's also to reach those people who have a desire to ride. They might be sitting on the fence. Do I really want to do this? And so we want to encourage them to give it a chance, give it a shot, go take the class, go get involved and get out there and get a bike and give it a shot. Because as we all know that's on here, it is fantastic. It is just, life begins when you get one, right? It's just so life-changing. It's a lifestyle that we all love, that we get out there, and for me, it's complete freedom. So that's what we want to make sure we get across to people as well.
Yeah. I thought about it. I joined Hog 29 years ago.
Goodness.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, it's been a long time.
Yes,
Mhm.
sir. All right. Deb, take us out, I guess.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, and be sure and stay tuned. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody. See y'all later. All right. Well, we really appreciate those guys being with us. I love the panel. It was a panel idea I had.
Yeah.
And I love the idea about having a panel on here. And it actually worked out. We didn't know it was going to work out this way. We had no idea, but there were opposites, right? There was the same.
Some commonalities, but yeah,
there was the same
great conversation.
But there was, what do you do with the 2-second rule? Do you really gap, like Jim was saying? How many?
Right, 5 18-wheel
18 wheelers.
truck. Yeah, 18-wheelers.
I mean, that's just. I couldn't
It's a
ride
lot.
that way.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be me.
It wouldn't feel like you're group riding, in my perspective, if
That's
you're that
true.
far apart. So,
And that might explain why I've seen a lot of the things I've seen too.
maybe
And everybody's got to ride their own ride, and that's okay.
that's absolutely right.
Doesn't mean some people are made for a group and some people aren't.
Right. And, I ideally, I think I would like to ride a smaller group,
Yeah.
less than 10 bikes. And again, the more you ride with some people, then you start to
It's
adapt to
that
how
much
each other
better.
rides. And that's, it's almost like that fine-tuned, well-oiled machine. You just know how each other are going to react and what you're looking for, and you just are more in sync. That's for
They
sure.
were great. We really appreciate them both being on. So, and by the way, if you have any comments, if you're watching this video on Facebook or you're listening to the podcast, make sure you let us know. You can do it, probably give a review on podcast, Apple Podcast,
Right, iTunes.
whatever platform you're listening to us on. Comment. Let us know if you got something out of us, if you didn't, if we needed to cover something better, or if you have some positive input, let us know.
Let us know. And
So,
you have a topic
do it on the
too.
video as well. So
That's
please do.
right. So you can also leave us a message by going to the chuck-n-deb-show.com and click to leave us a voicemail message. We would love to have that air for
Yeah, we can
you.
put that
We would
on there,
put that
too.
on the
We
air.
can
That'd
do
be
an audio.
great. And then also you can join our local biking community, which we've got thousands of people on that group, and share lots of pictures, stories, all sorts of fun stuff. But that is on the Chuck-n-Deb Show and on Biker Life Radio. So be sure and connect with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Was that Biker Life Radio on Facebook? Or?
On Facebook, yes.
Okay,
And
so
Chuck-n-Deb Show.
That's how
on
you can
Facebook.
find us with Biker Life Radio and the Chuck and Deb Show, as well as Chuck and Deb is part of Biker Life Radio.
Yep.
All right.
That's
That
it. That's
All right.
it.
Hey, thanks a lot for joining us, and we really appreciate you. Hope you enjoy the show. Please provide us some feedback. And until next week, which should be very special.
Very special.
So you want to tune in. If everything
stay
goes as
tuned.
planned, stay tuned. Come back and join us next week. Thanks a lot so much for listening. We do appreciate you very much. Take care, everybody.
We'll see you soon on the road.